Being criticized is never easy. It can make you feel as if you're not good enough, no matter how hard you try. Here to show us how to handle some criticism in a healthy way is former U.S. Marine and mental toughness expert Eric Rittemeyer. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Kaylee, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Eric, in my short time of life, I've learned that some people take criticism better than others. Is there any specific reason for that?
There is, Kaylee, because we're emotional creatures, right? So we're hardwired to feel first and think later. When somebody criticizes us, we automatically process that emotionally, and not all criticism is bad. Sometimes we have to really analyze it, internalize it, and I'm not saying you should take to heart everything that everyone says about you, but we do have to separate the logic from the emotion. Sometimes people are telling us things we probably need to hear. That's why it's upsetting us.
You know, constructive criticism is one that I always hear. I like constructive criticism. Is there a way that constructive criticism isn't always constructive for us, and you know that mental toughness doesn't really help?
Yeah, well, here's the issue with that. So it's all about building what I refer to as emotional resilience. So we have to keep our emotions in check. Some people come at us and they always have ill intent, right? It's the social media of the world. They're constantly trying to put you down to make themselves feel better. So what's most important about this, Kaylee, it's like with my kids. I hear this all the time. They're like, well, I don't care what anybody says about me. Sometimes you do need to care, right? Because if enough people are saying something, you should at least consider it. Again, I'm not saying you should take everything to heart. You should at least try to process it, but it's all about keeping your emotions under control.
Now, in your experience, what have some of your top tips been to handle any criticism that we get?
Well, it's being realistic. It's all about objective reality, and we don't like to have people say things to us that we take to heart. So a lot of times when people say things that really strike a nerve within us, we default to these defense mechanisms. We want to blame it on them, or we want to say, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. A lot of times when people say things that strike a nerve, normally it's because we know internally that they might be onto something. So a lot of times we can't just turn off that feeling. We should really think about it and be like, maybe they have a point. Even though I don't like them, maybe they have a point.
So, you know, maybe they have a point. You take it internally, you figure that out. Sometimes it may take longer. What else can we do to get that mental toughness and be able to take that criticism?
Well, it's about preparing, right? So in the Marine Corps, we call this systematic desensitization. Two of the biggest words in my language, I have no idea how to spell them. Don't ask me. I can tell you what it means. We desensitize our brains to it. So it's all about building confidence, Kaylee. And if we're confident in who we are, if we're not overly like, I'm really good at this and overly confident, but we also can't be really critical about our downsides too. If we're just realistic and we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, when somebody says something to us or criticizes us, if we know internally that's a strength, we're going to brush it off. But if we know that's a weakness, we might want to really consider taking a look at it, thinking about it, processing it. At the end of the day, criticism really does help us build more confidence, believe it or not.
So your book about mental toughness, your experience as a Marine, how do we work on being more mentally tough in everyday life?
It's about keeping the emotions under control, Kaylee, and it's about understanding that the person standing next to us probably loves us. That was the whole thing with my book when I wrote this back in September 2019. It's like Hakuna Matata, right? Let's just be happy again. It's a simple book on how to be nice to the person standing next to you. Everybody loves each other. We don't have to hate anybody. Let's just be nice and kind and just say thank you and please and smile at people. That would be, the world would be a wonderful place if we could just do those simple things.
Now, you know, the pandemic, we all know we've been through it. Has that, in your experience, changed anything or made it more challenging for people to handle criticism because of what we're going through?
Yeah, well, here's the issue, okay? So I'm a whole lot older than you, okay, Kaylee? But when I was a kid, we could break away from the craziness. So we detached. We didn't have social media. Now it's 24/7. You never get away from it. And we live in an era where it's more about social media than it is social interaction. So prior to this pandemic, we were already kind of suffering from a society that's incapable of normal communication. This whole pandemic thing has exacerbated that to the point where people are now hiding behind keyboards. They're emotionally frustrated. So what are they doing? They're letting it out via the keyboard. They know there's no ramifications for what they say. It creates a bad thing, but it's all about keeping the emotion under control.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric, for joining us this morning and helping us become a little more mentally tough in our everyday life.
Kaylee, thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the snow. We're getting snow, too. Enjoy the snow.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Hey, speaking of snow, tomorrow is a